So today's topic is about the Mercedes and Red Bull rivalry and how fans dispute how this rivalry started in the first place. It should come as no big surprise, especially after the 2021 Formula 1 season, that Red Bull and Mercedes don't really like each other. We've seen this proven on many occasions, like when after the season finale in Abu Dhabi, both teams protested the FIA's decisions and claimed that the World's Drivers' Championship was theirs. But when did this rivalry start? Or is it just a temporary thing that happened during one of these seasons? Well, it wasn't, but let's get started and look at all the dynamics with these two teams. The Mercedes AMG Formula 1 team has a long history in the sport. It was one of the competitors when the 5th edition of the championship started in 1954. They kept racing until after 1955, when they withdrew from racing in the series because of a crash at Le Mans that sadly killed 84 people. After being an engine supplier for more than 5 years, they got back into Formula 1 fairly recently in 2010 when they bought the Brawn GP team. This rookie team only lasted 1 year, which gave Jenson Button his only F1 Drivers' Championship for $175.7 million. The team was always competitive in Formula 1, with ups like in the hybrid era and downs like in that same 2010 season in which they failed to remain on the same level as the team that they bought. The most important team principal during their seasons is Torge Christian Wolff, better known as Toto Wolff, an Austrian investor and ex-racing driver. He was asked to invest in this new team and be its team principal, a contract to which he agreed. He still owns 30% of the team to this day and has no plans on selling his shares. From the moment he started getting the team together, it has won 7 drivers' titles from 2014 to 2020 and 8 constructors' titles from 2014 to 2021. On the other hand, Red Bull had been in Formula 1 for a lot more time than Mercedes, but its time in F1 hasn't always been that great. They arrived in the sport in 2005 after buying the Jaguar F1 team for £1, about £1.50 today. If that sounds ridiculously low, it's because it is. The team was struggling very badly financially, so they sold for that price in hopes of getting back on top when they rebranded. And sure enough, they did. While the Jaguar team led 2 laps of a Grand Prix, the Red Bull one led more than 3,000. It's not even that uncommon for a team to sell at that price. Another example being Honda when it was bought by Brawn in 2009. Red Bull originally tried to use engines from other manufacturers. It used Cosworth in 2005 and Ferrari in 2006. And from 2007 to 2018, it used the Renault engines. Rebranded after 2015 to Tag Heuer, when all of the relationships between the team and the car manufacturer were broken. They then used Honda from 2019 to 2021, but since it left the sport, they are now using proprietary powertrains from their Red Bull Powertrains division. Still, Honda is being the production of these engines, and recent contract states it will be until 2025. Going back to Red Bull, the team has always had one team principal, the one and only Christian Horner. He has always been the best team principal the team could ever have had, remaining calm even in stressful situations. He has raised 2 world champions, Sebastian Vettel and Max Verstappen, leading them to become dominant forces in this sport. The relationships between these two teams have honestly never been great. The two team principals are arch nemesis, with their squabbles going back to even before one of their teams, Mercedes, existed. They were both rumoured to be the successors of Bernie Ecclestone, F1's boss, and neither of them got that role. And when neither of them got that role, they both started blaming each other for their unsuccess. Then, things heated up again between the two teams when Niki Lauda left Jaguar to follow Hamilton's career and went to Mercedes instead of remaining with Red Bull. Their relationship is probably among the worst between two teams in this sport. If we look at how the teams treat their rivalry against Ferrari, it's pretty clear that the two don't like each other. If 2 F1 teams could be in a cold war, these would be the ones to do it. But why are we talking about this if it's just that? Well, during the 2021 season, it wasn't just that. For the first time since the beginning of the hybrid era, Mercedes finally found a competitor in the Drivers' Championship. So there was a close battle for the title, which ended up favouring Max Verstappen in what we all know as the most controversial season finale possibly ever. But it wasn't only the season finale that sparked a lot of hate amongst the two teams' fans. The first occasion of the season we first saw this happen was as soon as it started. During the 2021 Bahrain Grand Prix, Max Verstappen overtook Lewis Hamilton for the lead of the race with 4 wheels off the track, and that sparked a back and forth between Mercedes and the FIA until the federation deemed that overtake illegal and forced the Red Bull driver to give back the position gained. Or again, during the 2021 Spanish Grand Prix weekend, Mercedes started accusing Red Bull of having a rear wing that was too flexible and gave their car an advantage, and Horner responded by also accusing Mercedes' front wing of being too flexible. From there onwards, every race was just a series of complaints to the FIA about something the other team did, just like two children arguing over a toy and each one going to the teacher to get it back. We know there were a lot of instances where heftier penalties should have been given, like in Silverstone when Max was sent flying into the wall with a force of 51 Gs. Still, Lewis was only given a 10-second stop-and-go penalty, despite which he won the race. Or in Saudi, when Verstappen did a starting test at the exit of the pit lane, but he wasn't penalised in any way. Or even again when Lewis blocked Mazepin on his flying lap in FP1 in Abu Dhabi, but wasn't given any reprimand. It's clear that this is a sport with a lot of rules. Still, they should be respected by all drivers and those who don't always deserve a penalty. So yeah, it's safe to say that the teams don't like each other at all. But has it always been like this? No, not really. Despite the occasional fight between the two teams' principals, the teams weren't on the same level in any other season, so they never had the problem of having to talk dirty about each other to gain an advantage. The worst thing about this is the fans' reaction every time something bad happens to their favourite team, after which they repeatedly harass opposing fans, even in harmful ways. For example, after the Silverstone crash, Lewis Hamilton was given death threats by Verstappen's fans, like when they hung up a sheet that read, "Sir Cheat, karma is on its way." Or when in an interview, Christian Horner was so upset at what happened in the UK that he willingly promoted harassing Hamilton and Mercedes on social media. He is to be excused since he reacted without thinking rationally, as he was just given a $1.3 million bill to pay to get the car together. Still, fans' reactions like this are completely unacceptable, just like other people suggesting to insult Hamilton in a racist way. It's a real shame that such bad people are shining a bad spotlight over this amazing sport. And sadly, this is not even over since we've seen Verstappen getting boos on the Monza podium from Ferrari fans. At least the two drivers have always been sporty with one another, like when Lewis congratulated Max after Abu Dhabi, and even though the racing between those two drivers wasn't always fair or clean, it's safe to say they both did their best to keep it respectful whenever they could. Nowadays, after the recent change of regulations, Mercedes has become a less present figure on the podium, and hasn't won a single race since the beginning of the season. For the sake of the sport, I hope the Ferrari-Red Bull rivalry won't be as bad as this one, and I hope that they'll manage to show us fans a spectacle without smashing each other's cars. So what do you think? Is the rivalry between Mercedes and Red Bull a bit too much? Will we see this kind of relationship in the near future? Let us know with a comment below, and don't forget to subscribe, because at 10,000 subscribers, we will buy both Mercedes and Red Bull so that they stop arguing with each other. No, not really, but you should subscribe anyway.